I want to delve into the business model of journalism now. I'm going to geek out because I really enjoy it. I think most listeners probably don't know the impact that 2008 had on the business model on journalism. So we've gone from like a CPM model to someone that doesn't know, cost per thousand. Your adverts go onto a magazine or a website. Well, actually before that, it was really print. The money was going into print, and in 2008, there was a real shift onto online. But the CPM model then the business model doesn't work to be able to pay journalists. The cost of writing a story, getting a photographer, doing the fact checking, when you then get online and work out the cost per thousand, how many thousand views you have to get to a story, all of a sudden display adverts don't work.
Yep. I, as a rule, think we don't consider enough about the models that give us information.
Yeah.
There's the idea that humans are so reliant on story, we're like fish in water, which means we don't even really consider the quality of the water. It's so around us, and it's so all-consuming what ideas are entering our head and from where, people, information providers, what have you, we just awash in it. So yes, I've spent my entire career, I'm obsessed with the models that get us information. I think information and story is as important as our food source. This is how we interact with each other and navigate the world. And so I think it matters how those who provide us information get motivated. Professional information gathering in its modern sense gets its start hundreds of years ago only as a subscription model. Individuals who are gathering information for commerce or warfare and being paid to say, I will then get that information and inherit for you. So it was, in its origins, highly targeted, compensated for individual actors. That information was an advantage for business or war. And it's much later in 18th, 19th centuries that the idea of advertising was even added. That was like an invention, right? Like that I think a lot about, and we can find those examples. Philadelphia is actually a home to some of the early kind of versions of, we're going to put together advertising to bring down subscription costs and play with that model. But those are intentional business models that entrepreneurs were playing with. I take great inspiration from how you play with the models and what that gets you. And we go through eras in which we are highly motivated to be deeply partisan, and we get generations of information providers in the United States that are deeply partisan, and especially in the 19th century, because the models made that make sense. The rise of what we kind of fuzzily think of as a kind of golden age of 20th century American style information provision that is relatively low cost, relatively quality, though there's lots of gatekeepers. What happens there? Advertising was in such demand. The rise of consumer culture was the growth engine of advertising, and your options were like billboards or advertising in periodicals.
Yep.
And that was a golden age. And so you then care a little bit less about subscription rates and you rely on advertising, and then you're kind of racing to the middle. And so we go to this moment, which has lots of flaws, but you race into the 20th century saying we want to amass the largest audiences we can. So we're going to kind of race to the middle because advertising is so valuable. Yep. That starts breaking down in the 80s and 90s, because as you said the inventory essentially becomes ubiquitous. Because there was a time where, I can only have a dozen or maybe 5 newspapers in a given region. There was constraint. It was difficult to have a printing press. It was difficult. You were running a light manufacturing business. There was a lot of moat to entering that business. The digital age removed all moat. And media now is the inverse of most businesses. Most businesses, day one is the hardest. You got to figure out customer, you got to get that first customer, you got to figure out product market fit. Media is the exact opposite. Day one is the easiest. Anyone can launch a newsletter, open a website, launch a social account. You have incredible telecommunications tools to do that. Day one is the easiest day of a media business, which is why people get it wrong so often. 6 to 8 months later, maintaining, growing an audience, that's the hardest part of a media business. It's the inverse. And it's all powered by the models that get us there, which is very different in today's age.